introduce a special guest, a visitor to Pine Bluffs. She arrived yesterday, and she said, "Don't tell the whole story." So we met out on the westbound, ended on the eastbound, then went back to the westbound. But anyway, and I had the opportunity to listen to her for a little bit. And this is the kind of lady you really want to hang around, because it's very good. But I'm going to just, she gave me one of her cards, and it says inspirational speaker, health advocate, author, transcontinental runner, and adventurer. And I'm going to leave it at that and introduce Helene Neville.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The mayor, look at what he gave me. It's so beautiful. I can't wait to just wear it in every state line. Well, my journey, it started in 1998. At that time, I was told I wasn't going to get better. I simply didn't think that I was going to make it. And confronting my own mortality, I thought, if this is it for me, if I'm really truly not going to make it, what more can I do? What do I want to say before I go? My first thought was to replace bad memories my sons probably had at that time. I was sick for several years, and just to start creating positive memories for them every single day. I was living in Iowa at the time, and rather sit home and wait, I went running. I left the hospital that day, went home. They said to get your affairs in order, but I signed up for the Chicago Marathon. It was July, and that marathon was in October. I had exactly 77 days to train for that run. So my first training day, I packed my two sons in my little Suzuki Sidekick. They were 13 and 11. Neither one had a license, obviously. And we found this 6-mile loop outside of Des Moines, a country road. And my 13-year-old, I said, "You drive." And my son, that was 11, he rode on his little bike next to me. And their only bit of information that they were supposed to be responsible for was, if I collapsed, just drag me in the back seat and then take me to ER. And so during those 77 days, I was only able to train 6 times, and my longest run was 6 miles. I did that 3 times. So in fact, the exact distance that I trained over those 77 days was 26 miles. And I thought, it can't be too bad. This didn't seem too bad, and maybe it's that .2 that gets everybody. So I wonder, maybe I overtrained a little. Well, several friends decided to make the trip with me to Chicago. And we made these t-shirts with my photo and phone number on them. On the way to Chicago, I was so excited. There was an outlet mall, and I thought, I'm going to stop and buy some clothes so I could look good. And I found Mango shorts, Mango sport bra, Mango shoes, and in the store right next to the athletic store was a makeup store, and I found Mango lipstick, and I'm like, if I collapse and have to be driven back to Iowa in a hearse, at least I'd look halfway decent. My friends made a poster board with my name, and at Chicago Marathon there were 40,000 people. And they commandeered one ambulance because nobody really had any confidence in me, and they put the poster board with my phone number and picture and just stood there the whole time, I guess waiting to be dispatched somewhere to my body along the route. And then I went to the start, and I thought, nursing shift at that time, I'm a nurse, was 8 hours. Surely I could do it in maybe 5. I'm going to stand in that 5-hour corral. And everybody in the corral, and I looked pretty good in my outfit, and everybody was comparing notes like they do, the runners, of which guru's method they followed, how long they trained, how many long runs they did for the marathon, how many times they did a 22-mile training run. And I just stood there hoping no one would ask what my method was, because I just freaking showed up. So the gun went off and I just took off, just running for my life. And finished in 4 hours and 23 minutes to a crowd of no one because they were still at the ambulance waiting for my body. But lucky for me, they were giving me free beer out at the beer tent. So I just went to a party of one. So after that, I took on mountain climbing. I entered a couple bodybuilding competitions, started 2 companies, and never looked back. Everything they told me I couldn't do, I tried. In 2010, I was turning 50, and I thought, I want to do more. So, armed with nothing but just my innate curiosity and a quest for enlightenment, I was determined to run across America. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I had no idea what was even needed. I just knew why I was doing it. And I just wanted to inspire health and unity. And I really kind of felt I was uniquely qualified for this run because as a nurse, nurses have knowledge of intake versus output, which you need. And nursing is about giving and never giving up. So imagine surviving cancer. At that time in 2010, I was a 3-time cancer survivor and enduring chemotherapy, radiation, and 3 brain surgeries. And then imagine running 25 miles, sometimes more, each day without roadside support, surviving on whatever's in your backpack for that particular day, all alone on the highways of America. And then after running all those miles, you somehow harness the strength to visit hospitals, cancer centers, schools, to share your story. Before that 2010 run, I wrote my first book, Nurses in Shape. It's a health fitness book. I thought that, I parlayed 2 things, running and nursing, and I just took the book and ran with it, literally. On May 1st, 2010, I started in Ocean Beach, California, and I ran all the way across to Atlantic Beach, Florida. But on May 17th, and during that run, 17 days into that run, my doctor called and said, your cancer's probably back. And imagine getting news like that. So I just told him I'm probably running to Florida, I'll call you in 3 months. So it was just me and thousands of miles to cross and conquer. Before that run, before I left for that 2010 run, I called my really good friend, she was 75 at the time. I said, hey Lil, I'm gonna run across America. And she just yelled at me over the phone. She said, are you crazy? Just have one of your sons call to tell me what state you died in, and she hung up on me. So in an attempt to solicit sponsors with funding what I thought was a very important health message across America, I was living in Phoenix at the time. It's scorching hot every single day. And I was so excited that this prominent CEO of a company called me in to give my spiel to try to maybe get sponsor money. He just sat across the boardroom table from me and he asked, how many fans do you have? And I looked at him puzzled. I said, well, none. I have central air. That evening I quickly learned what a fan page was, and since I didn't get that sponsorship, I had to become innovative, learn to stretch a dollar further than it could be stretched, do more with less. In fact, my run really redefined what a shoestring budget is, and it still does. But with limited resources, off I went running. Before the 2010 run, with the help of friends, we raised $5,000. We had a dilapidated 1987 RV, and I was hoping that would take me across America with a crew of 1 each time. And so it sounded like it would work, but we put down $5,000 for this just tin box. Air conditioners sometimes worked. And I'm thinking, how am I going to persuade people to take time off their job and drive through the hottest part of the U.S. and in this traveling trash can, basically, held together with duct tape. And we took this RV to an RV dealer and just said, we'll come back tomorrow. Can you look it over and give us a quote to get it road ready? I just need to go 25 miles every day, about 3,000 miles, and then drive it back. Well, the next day we went back and the quote was $4,000. And my first driver just looked at this guy and said, no thanks, we have duct tape. So off we went. And that RV broke down in most cities that I went through. And every driver I recruited ate, drank, and smoked. Ate fast food. And ironically, my run was, about inspiring health in the nation. The road I ran on most of the time during that summer was so hot that one day the sole of my shoe melted off. And I wear this running garb, well, when I'm not in Wyoming wearing a parka, but when I'm out there, there's nothing sexy about my running attire. I wear this hat that sort of looks like a beekeeper's hat. Every run up until now, it has been white in color, and it looks like a veil. Put gloves on, I tell people it's for compression, force the fluid out of my hands, but it's really to protect my manicure. And I wear a long sleeve shirt, smear white zinc oxide all over my face, and of course red lipstick. And so I look like the Joker from Batman running to go do some gardening. One of my drivers, he seemed overly excited the day he flew in. And I lied and told him that our RVs can only go 45 miles an hour. Because he's a guy and he liked NASCAR, and I'm thinking this thing will fall apart if it goes over 40. And so we're driving to where I finished the day before, and I look over and he has, a white t-shirt with Marlboro Reds rolled up and this tattoo that said mother, and is drinking Red Bull, and I'm just thinking this can't be good. So his duty was really to drop me on the highway, drive ahead 25 miles, set up camp at an RV park, cook for me if I was lucky. And it sounded like a really great plan had it not been that RV parks were further apart than 25 miles. But when we were driving to drop me off, all of a sudden he just takes the wheel of the RV and pulls it off to the side, and he yells, "Jesus, take the wheel." And I'm like, I love that song. And he said, "No, there's a border checkpoint, and I forgot to mention I'm on parole." So I had to drive this RV through the border checkpoint, and I hadn't even turned the ignition. I had no idea how to drive it. So the grand plan was drop and drive. And so one day he dropped me off, and the next town we thought, okay, I'll see you down the road in like 8 hours or so. Well, 60 miles later, 15 hours, I limped into Deming, New Mexico, and I was out there in the sun for 15 hours. And I just went to the first place that I knew people would be at, the Deming Laundromat. So I just practically kicked open the door and announced I would give anybody $5 just to drive me to the RV park. And this lady looks up from the dryer and she's like, "Well, keep your money, but could you help me fold my clothes?" And I'm like, "Seriously?" Look at me. I'm filthy, but can I do it sitting down? And she's like, "Okay." So we did all this laundry folding. But luckily there was a Dairy Queen in that town, and as we were driving, I'm in the back seat holding these laundry baskets, and I love Dairy Queen. And so she pulls just this Yui in the road, and all the laundry baskets went flying. But when we finally arrived to the RV park, I went to my driver and I'm like, "Did you happen to notice I was gone for 16 hours today?" And he looked at his phone and, I should have turned it on. But he was hosting a weenie roast and a keg party for all the RVers. And I'm like, "That's great. So when is it about the runner?" But my journey did reveal that the human spirit is alive and well and living right next to you and me. People with nothing to give usually are the ones that give the most. People who have endured more than their fair share of devastation, destruction, and poverty. In fact, during that 2010 run, I was running through Louisiana. It was 5 years later, and the scars are still visible from Katrina. And during my run that year, they were facing yet another devastating blow, the BP oil spill. But they rebuild and carry on. Although the effects touch them deeply, they're survivors because they have to be, just like you and me. When I was running, trying to get to the Mississippi state line, I was cut off by this old, just dilapidated, junky, old gray pickup. And the lady rolls her windows down. She's like, "Hey, are you that there nurse running around America?" And I said, "Yeah." And she looks like she may have been on her last leg like I was. And she's like, "Hey, I passed you 8 hours ago, and I just want to be a part of it. I want to do something for you." And so she said, "I brought you something." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, what could that be?" And she handed me large fry, large Coke, and chicken nuggets. I didn't have the heart to tell her it wasn't on the diet, but it did taste good after like 30 miles. And in Mississippi, I found myself without a driver, and at that time, I was super savvy on my fan page. So we just put up an ad, and I'm waiting at an RV park, and then this woman shows up. She's maybe 4'11", 75 years old, hard of hearing, suffers from insomnia, has never driven an RV or cooked on a portable grill, and she announced that she wore diapers for a prolapsed rectum. And her name is Martha, and I loved her. And I'm like, "Martha, I think you're overqualified for this job." One day I was out running and I called her, and the whole time I was with her 10 days, I never understood a word she said because of her Cajun accent. And there were words that she said that I've never heard before. Well, I called her, I said, "Martha, come pick me up. I'm at my 25-mile mark." And she's like, "Hon, could you just give me a minute or maybe an hour, because I'm at the casino and I'm on a roll." Like, if you don't win, don't come back. And runners, walkers, hikers, they're always the people that seem to find dead bodies. So when I started that 2010 run, I was a little excited about that. And I thought, if I'm going to run this many miles, surely I'm going to find a body. And so a police officer stopped to give me a bottle of water and just to see how I was. And I said, "I'm doing great, but I am a little disappointed that I haven't found a body yet." And he's like, points to me with his finger, and he's like, "You just keep looking, they're out there." And during that run, when you're a nurse no matter what, the grocery store, the library, wherever. And I'm sitting in the back seat of this car. My driver, we're at a red light, and all of a sudden, I was dressed in my little veil and my zinc oxide, everything all ready to just jump out and run. But at a red light, we heard a crash. And I looked back, and a motorcycle was just hit. And I told the driver, "Call 911. I jumped out and knelt down. No helmet. I judged him to be like maybe 6'2", 300 pounds, black guy, bleeding, unconscious, bleeding from his nose and his mouth. And I'm like, sir, "Are you okay?" And what seemed like, many, many minutes, in reality it was probably 2 minutes. Well, he finally opened his eyes and he looked up at me and he's like, "Jesus?" And I'm like, "Nope." But he did get better, and I actually went to visit him a few times. So 2010, I ran 2,520 miles in 93 days, and that route, 6 people had only ever done that route, and it was all men, of course, and in the winter. So I was the first person to ever go in the summer, and the first woman to ever run across that path. And because of the lack of accessibility to services, the summer heat, even though that route is actually the shortest of all of them across the country, it was the most brutal because it's kind of like Wyoming, picture that. Because there's no services, there's hardly any people. But after that run, my plan was put on hold to run again. I really hadn't thought about it. And I was diagnosed in 2011, late 2011, with my 4th bout of cancer. But that didn't stop me from running 1,580 miles from Vancouver, Canada to Tijuana, Mexico. And I was 52 years old at that time. But 3 months before that run, which actually kind of motivated me to go, was my 56-year-old brother passed away unexpectedly. And my family was like, you should go run, you should take him with you. And I just didn't feel right about it. And I went to sleep and had a dream, and he came to me in my dream, and my mom, who's also deceased. And I woke up, called my sister, said, I'm taking him. And he was a fabulous musician, so in addition to hospitals, cancer centers, I was going to stop at every music store too. But I thought, I'm going to take him literally, his urn, not knowing anything about urns, I'm going to put it in my backpack. And so from that moment on, when I made that decision, everything I did, I would sing, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Until UPS knocked on my door and handed me 2 boxes. One was with the ashes, and one was the urn. I'm like, he is freaking heavy. But I already promised, so and it weighed 26 pounds when I put the ashes in the urn and went in my backpack. The whole RV idea was ditched, and I used that support wagon outside that everybody's welcome to sign, and pretty much play a leapfrog around the entire country, which should be a world record, but just by itself. The logistics alone are mind-boggling, and running is actually the easiest part of the journey. But I loved having my own vehicle. I stay in people's home, which gives me that up close and personal feeling with people, and get to be in a uniquely of the people where they live and in their own environment. During that 2013 run, I was without housing. I put a note on the Facebook looking for a house. Some woman replied in Lacey, Washington. And she's like, I have a daughter, I'm a single teacher, a single mom. We have like 6 dogs, 50 cats, I don't know what it was, and some pet rats. And I'm like, oh man. So I wrote her back, said, are the rats in a cage? And she's like, yeah. So I stayed with her. Of course, my diet is all protein, steak, bacon, eggs, lots of things. Not many carbs, but it was like pizza, soda. It was scraping of the barrel there, but it was fun. And she kept reminding me, you can sleep in as long as you need to go get to your next point, but never leave the house unless you have all your stuff, because this door automatically locks, and and you get so tired running, I didn't even remember what her name was. So, of course, I forgot everything she told me and went out to the car to get something, and the door shut. And so here I am in my black and pink Minnie Mouse flannel pajamas outside this lady's house that I had no idea what her name was. And so I'm looking at the house, and I grew up in Philly, so I'm really savvy about things and getting into houses. And so I climbed on the roof, the garage roof, and tried to get the second-story window open, and about that time the cops showed up and took me to the police station in my pajamas. And so I have a really great relationship with police since then. But then they called her, and there you go. I continued my run. I stopped at this elementary school. The principal called, said, hey, we want you to come in. We were kind of fanatics about health. We're trying to get our kids involved. It was K through 5. I said, absolutely, and I went, and I'm in the gymnasium, and I know I'm the oldest in the whole place, including all the teachers and everybody. And so this little girl raised her hand. She's like, how old are you? I'm like, oh man, do I have to answer that? And so I just, kind of tried to inspire, and I might have deflected that or pivoted from that question, but I was out running the next day, and the principal called and said, that girl that asked you that question? First thing today, she's in my office signing up for our running club, and they couldn't get people to sign up, or these kids. And the principal asked, why are you signing up now? And she said, well, because this really, 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 really old lady is running around America. And that made me feel good. On May 1st, 2014, I left Marathon, Florida. 68 days later, I ended up in Portland, Maine. And That was pretty fabulous. Along that run, I had to figure out a way to get from Maryland to Delaware. None of the roads were accessible by foot or bicyclists. And, they have it locked down out there, and the East Coast traffic is nuts. And so I rented a kayak. I was going to run to the Susquehanna River and then just row over. Well, this friend of mine went to the Port Authority and kind of pleaded the case, and at first they were like, no, get back. Well, as it turns out, one of the police officers, it was his first day back to work. He had been off for several months. His wife died of a brain tumor. And he came up to me in the car and he was crying. He couldn't even speak. They had to speak for him. And he just said, my wife said you're getting across this bridge. And so they shut the bridge, and all I could think about, it was 2 miles long, was Chris Christie in New Jersey, who shut the George Washington Bridge down. And so I'm sprinting. and I mean, I kind of felt like a rock star, but I was really sort of felt bad for all the cars, the hundreds of cars back behind, they just closed it. So after we got across, I allowed him to write his wife's name on the car, and that's where all the signatures were born. And excuse me, each run we archive and then do a whole new kind of blank canvas. So you're welcome to sign the car, and that was pretty amazing. May 1st, 2015, I started in New Brunswick, Canada, or St. Stephen's, New Brunswick. And I ran over 3,700 miles in 128 days to Ocean Shores, Washington. And that was along the top. My brother's urn, it's been with me the whole time. I just carry a baggie. The urn's in the vehicle because it is a little heavy. Although it's much lighter now because I've been dropping some ashes, spreading some ashes. But along the way, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame heard about it, my run, and they just made a whole day for me. And they happened to recruit and find, I don't know how, a rock band, and they were nurses. And so they had the urn on the stage, and these nurses played a couple songs. Let It Be was one of them, and then gave me a police escort. The mayor was there to give me a proclamation. It was pretty amazing that, events take forever to plan, including like a police escort like yesterday. That, how you have to go through city council for everything, right, Mayor? and things just happen. So, and then during all the runs, I collect money, all the money I find. There's not a lot on the interstate, but I collected about $68. But this, so far here, I think I'm up to 84 cents. But I have this little bucket, I just toss it in. And when I was on my way to Chicago to get my next driver and my host home, I came upon the toll booth, but it was just the little, whatever you call it, the bucket where you dump in the money. And there's actually not an arm, a gate, that you just throw the money in, the light goes off. So I counted out, there was $1.50, and I counted out 6 coins and tossed them in, drove down the road, and then here come my friends, the cops. Well, they weren't, what I thought that they were quarters, but they were Indiana Zoo tokens for the Fort Wayne, Indiana Zoo. And I'm like, so I had to go back and give them $1.50, and then I made them open up that thing and get my tokens back, just in case I was going to stop at the zoo. So, and on September 5th, 2015, I finished running the entire perimeter of the continental U.S. I ran altogether 9,713 miles, became the first nurse, first cancer survivor, first grandmother, first person over 50. And prior to me, I was number 5. The 4 people that finished before me were all under 30. And so to put that in perspective about those 5 people, more than 7,000 people have summited Mount Everest, but only 5 have ever run the perimeter. But that's pretty good, right? From my running, I feel like I've really emerged with just a new sense of purpose, determined to meet that next person, to share the awakenings and the purpose with other people that I encounter along the way. And you know how they say the journey never ends? After the 2015 run, I came up with an idea. I was going to run back and forth in the Las Vegas Strip. I live in Las Vegas. For every day I was gone on that last run, which was 135. And I ran 135 miles in 35 hours from the welcome sign to the welcome to downtown sign. It was just a gesture to say thank you, and that was interesting. I actually wore my red, white, and blue outfit, and people thought I was part of the act, so I think I ended up with $60 on that. So after being diagnosed after that run with my 5th cancer, I went through, just this past year, radiation, chemo, and a few surgeries. But in November of 2016, with my port still in my chest, I came up with this idea. I had to bring my brother home. We're from Philly, the city of brotherly love. And I created this marathon of love. I would leave from my childhood home, run 10.2 miles to the Philadelphia Art Museum. That's the Rocky Steps. And I would just run up and down until it's a full marathon. And I carried the urn. I spread his ashes at our house. And I thought, maybe if I don't collapse, then I'm going to continue just running, keep going. Well, I ran the 10.2, then ran up and down these steps nonstop, and it turns out that there was an existing world record for the Rocky Steps, 7 miles up and down, and I ran 16, so with an urn, and then I ran 10 to get there, so that was pretty amazing. And since I survived that, I thought, my whole project is to just really look at our country, at the people, and tell the story about how amazing and how beautiful everybody is. But I can't tell it unless I do every state. And so I got my port out about a little over a month ago and decided I would start and run the last 12 states of the continental U.S. Well, I started in Wyoming May 1st, Evanston, and I've been sick ever since. No, in my mind, before I actually came to Wyoming, I thought, okay, from the maps, it looks like nothing's even there. I'm just going to put my car every 100 miles in and run to the car. I had nothing planned, and the first day I was sick. Day 2, May 2nd, I was in the hospital with altitude sickness. I was so sick. But day 2, I did 10 miles, and I found this old little dirty stuffed animal. It was a bunny. And I picked it up, and an old license plate, and I'm staggering on the side of the interstate, carrying the bunny by the ears. And then I looked, there's a mental institution there. I know, they think I just escaped. But as it turns out, everybody just came to the rescue. There isn't a better story than what I lived the last 30-some days. I was only supposed to be here 20, but it's like the Wyoming Triangle. And, but I went, when I finally, I did 10 miles a day, except the days I was in the hospital. And then I was in Rock Springs, and my car just stunk because I was almost in a coma. I was so sick, and actually the hotel washed the bunny for me, and I just continued to carry it with me, and because it was my best friend. So I pull into Rock Springs, and they donated a hotel for a week, and I went to one of those car wash bays, and I had all my crates out, and this guy pulls up, and he looked a little disheveled to me. I didn't think he was like any prize, and he's like, "Hey, I'm calling the cops. You can't do your laundry in here. I'm sorry you're homeless." And I'm like, "Homeless? I'm famous." And then he's like, "Well, can I borrow a quarter then?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" Well, then he was Googling me from, all the stuff on the car, and he's like, "Hey, president of the Rotary. I'm like, really? And he's like, well, our speaker canceled. Can you come tomorrow and speak? I'm like, and then, when he asked me for a quarter, and then after he told me about the Rotary, he's like, I'm on the city council. I'm like, it figures, man. Politicians always looking for a handout. So, and he was kind of my go-to guy for the whole week. But I was so out of it, and he took me, I worked for the police department in Las Vegas occasionally as a jailhouse nurse, which is not fun at all, but I met most of the police, and I went to the lieutenant's office, and he had a nice black leather couch in there, and he was just talking to me, and I'm like, I know my eyes are open, but I'm in a coma. And then I'm like, excuse me, sir, but do you have to take a break for lunch? Because can I just lay down on your couch for a couple? I was so exhausted. So I hope that my run is a window into the truth, a glimpse into the miracle, the true miracle, and the mystery and magic of who we really are, and the basic nature of human connection, or the unity of all things. Contrary to conventional thinking, cooperation and not competition is nature's most fundamental operating principle. If we see hope, if we see love, if we see optimism, it all comes back to us. And I try to put that message out there with every step I take. What I do is truly what I see. And I think I make a difference because I allow other people to make a difference. And when I'm out there, I'm thinking, I'm at this pace. The cars are speeding by and the trucks are speeding by. And sometimes it's a little symbolic of our life, and that maybe we're going too fast, that we don't take the time to just stop and ask a friend or a stranger how they're doing today. And if I can give you any advice, don't wait for any life-threatening event to start doing what you want to do. Don't miss out on life by not participating in it. Think outside your limits and just take a risk and just go for it and give it a go and see where that takes you. I believe that the word impossible is merely a phrase that offers an excuse, and that anything's possible despite age, adversity, health. People say that motivation never lasts. Well, neither does bathing, and that's why they recommend that daily. And remember, it's your time. If you don't take it, somebody's taking it from you. And you may hear others talk about burnout, and I love when people say that to me. Oh, I'm burned out. And I'm like, you know what? You can't burn out if you're not on fire. There's not much of anything that lifts people more than believing in a mission, a vision that's bigger than you. So while others sit back in their comfortable chair and observe, the brave one isn't afraid and gets in the ring and fights. Things are made by those who show up, and excuses are made by those who don't. And I always tell people, don't save the best for last, because we never know when last will be. And people think that running is a solo sport, and that can't be further from the truth. Even though I'm alone out there on the highway, and Wyoming was a perfect example, I'm never really alone. People always tell me, they told me before the run, they tell me during the run, if I have the courage to run and get out there and stay out there, then they're going to look after me. And this state really came to the plate. So as I shared some of my stories with you today, I hope that you think about your own stories, how you affect people and affect people's lives. What I want everybody to get and realize is that, you can accomplish little by yourselves, but we can accomplish everything together. And my run's called One on the Run, meaning one, that we're all one. And when we realize that we're all one, we can do everything. We can do anything we want. We have the opportunity to focus on that which unites us or that which divides us, and I focus on uniting. And you can choose to take that light inside you and do whatever you want with it. I run not to see what is wrong with the world, but to expose what's right. And what I discover when I look deeply, that, wow, there's more right than I ever imagined with the people of our country, our community. I've been sincerely touched by the generosity of the people and the lives that have become part of mine. Just turn your hope into action, because you're the only one qualified to be you. And you know, Wyoming really taught me how to tolerate pain, discomfort, challenge my fears, and learn to say that I'm going to make it all the way to my goal. Thanks. Any questions? Wait, do we have questions? And don't ask me how many shoes I wear. Gone through, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a question, sir?
I appreciate you.
Thanks. Thanks.
What about your sons? Were they with you sometime?
Are you kidding? No. My first, well, when I first ran, my one son was in medical school. I think he was just starting. And then my second son was graduating undergrad. And I'm like, this sounds like a great job. I was trying to persuade him there. Said you could wear whatever you want. While I'm out running, you could do whatever you want, which most of the drivers did. I think, like, I had to find one at a topless bar in San Antonio. And who knows what they were doing when I was gone. But my son didn't like, well, he's a basketball player. They're just too busy, but they did come to the finish in Florida. And then on my 2015 run, my one son's a dental surgeon, but he cleaned my teeth. I ran right to his office. And then, you know, this whole leapfrog thing, you know, drop me and then leave me, and we put the car at the finish for the day. And my son, my second son, the youngest, the basketball coach, I was in North Dakota, and I'm like, here's how it works. I don't think people really understand unless they're out there, and they know in their brain, but they can't put it together. And like, okay, you want me to just leave you? So I'll never forget my son's face. I said, okay, Dan, stop. This is where I start. And we had already dropped the car. And he's like, you mean you just want me to leave my mom on the interstate? I was like, but you're my mom. I can't just. And then some people cry. A couple people cried here. They're like, no, you want me to just leave you? Anyway. So yeah, but my sons are, you know, it's not a big thing to them because, or at least they don't say that. They do worry, but ever since they said to get my affairs in order in 1998, all my sons know me as, like, she's climbing this mountain, she's, you know, all these crazy things. So this is like, that's just my mom. So. Thanks for asking about that. Group picture, I have a little banner, and we can hold up this flag, that banner. Oh, get on Facebook and like one on the run.